What's up? Hey, welcome back to another vlog. So, last devlog I showed off my new character and all the failed prototypes that came before it. And this devlog we're going to be making our first minigame, also going to be designing a logo and adding multiplayer, and of course much more. First thing on the list is that minigame. So the minigame is going to be in a body of water, most likely in the middle of the ocean, because then I'll have to do less environment decorate. Well, you'll see in a second. So the minigame is based on a minigame from Hypixel in which you have a kind of floating ship zeppelin thing with a dragon head on top, and it shouldn't cannonballs at you, so you have to avoid them, or of course, well, the obvious result if you don't dodge them is you die. That's really all that happens. It's quite a fun minigame even though it's so simple, so I'm going to be making that. The reason why it's in the middle of the ocean is because it's kind of pirate ship, so it's not going to be in the middle of a river or something like that. So now that we decided what the first minigame is going to be, we can get started on the placeholder models. So first thing I did was make a raft, which ended up looking not too bad for a placeholder model, but it's not great, so I'm going to replace it later because, well, it's a placeholder model. And next, jeez, I can't speak anymore. So next thing I made was a cube. Yep, cube. It's supposed to be a cannon, but I can't make those, so I just make cube. So say hello to cube. Speaking of cubes, I ordered PC parts because up until now I've been doing everything on a 2015 MacBook Air. Worked fine, but it was kind of trashy, slow, and well, it was all obviously 2015, that's like 5 years ago. Wait, oh shit, 6 years ago. The fuck? Okay, so after having a life crisis about how old I was, even though I'm 16, I used my PC to get started on a minigame. Well, no I didn't. I got addicted to Minecraft VR, so I played that for a while. But now I'm done with that and done with rehab, we can finally get started on a minigame. First thing we need is a project, oh shit man, I can't speak anymore. So first thing we need is a projector, and that's what I made, as you can see on screen there. Okay, I'm going to talk normal again now. So after finding a formula and changing that into code, I got this script. And basic explanation is it first spawns in a cannonball, it then takes a random float, which is actually a number just in code, and it takes that random number, puts it in the formula, just like another bunch of variables, and then it creates an output, which is a force, which it applies to the cannonball, and then the cannonballs go whoosh. Yeah, they go whoosh. That's what they do. And as you can see, it's actually working pretty well. I'm able to control the angle at which well, in this case cubes, but they're going to be cannonballs, of course, can be shot, and also the distance, and it's randomly selected between a max and minimum distance, as you could see in the code just a minute ago. Speaking of randomly selected, I randomly selected this segment to multiplayer. Yeah, we need to implement multiplayer. Remember multiplayer? Yeah. I have a confession to make. Remember how we got started on the minigame before multiplayer? Well, that wasn't exactly true. I actually got started on multiplayer before the minigame. So the thing I used for multiplayer was photon networking solution. No, not that photon. No, it's a networking solution, of course, as the name implies, for Unity. And if you're not a big brain like me, you obviously don't know what a networking solution is. So let me simplify that. Well, a networking solution is a solution for networking. But if that's even too complicated for you, let me simplify it even further. It's a solution to my problem. Yeah. It took about a week to set up with a handy tutorial found online by Rugbug Ratfern. And basically how it works is you can choose to either create a room or find a room. If your friend already created a room, you can obviously find it, but if no one did yet, you can create a room, as you can see. And then when the hosts, aka the player who created the room, presses start, then a game server thing gets created, and all the players get spawned into the room kind of minigame thing, and the minigame starts. So, and you can also see other players walking around just like in real life, because in real life, when someone walks forward, you can see them walking forward, which is pretty handy in preventing things like accidents and stuff like that. Yeah, science, bitch! The setup that makes all this work consists of a server, which is going to connect all the devices that are connected to it, and a client, which are all the players. And the way all the clients talk to each other is via the server. So they go to the server and they like, hey, and the server is like, behind you, dumb dumb. And then they be like, oh yeah, sorry. And they be like, hey, what are you talking about? Wait, come to me. And they're like, oh, I moved. And the server is like, nice. And then the server goes to the other clients and it's like, hey. And they be like, sup. And the server be like, the guy just moved. And the clients be like, nice. So now that we're done with multiplayer, it's time to make something wet. Not that, get your mind out of there, man. Yeah. It's time to make water, because obviously we're in the middle of the ocean and there's going to be some water there, obviously. So yeah, I made that. I didn't find the exact style I was looking for, but I ended up with this. It's placeholder because, well, it's not looking that great, but for now my visual effects skills aren't good enough to make good water, so yeah. Now, talking about water, one cool thing that happens in water is that I kind of float so I don't drown, except when I forget my floaties. And the thing we have to thank for that is buoyancy. So I tried implementing that into the game, but it didn't work well. I think you could say that. It kept on floating in the air, so yeah, that didn't work well. I disabled that, and I'm probably going to be looking for a workaround later on, but for now I'm too lazy to do that, so yeah, just keep it disabled for now. One of the main reasons I tried implementing buoyancy was to make a kind of shinging effect whenever you had an impact on the platform, but of course, as you could see just a moment ago, that didn't work out. Whenever heavy things in real life hit other things, they move. So I tried doing that in my game and it actually worked. I also tried implementing smoke or dust whenever that happened to make it even more visually appealing, but that didn't work out either, so I just scrapped that, and maybe I'll try that later on as well. So now cannonball impacts at the plot to the platform are way more dramatic, but whenever that happens to a player, well, it's not exactly dramatic because, well, they don't die. So now it's time to add death. So whenever a cannonball hits a player, instead of bouncing off the player, just like I do with your mom, bam. So, anyways, whenever it hits the player is going to fall down and lose control of the muscles, and also he dies. But when you die, nothing happens. So instead of keeping that, we obviously want a spectator mode like you have in a lot of games. So I created a simple character controller. Whenever you die, it's inspired by the PS4 version or Xbox version, or where you have mini games, and when you die, you have the exact same character controller. Well, kind of exactly the same, not completely the same. I'm also planning on adding sabotage to the gameplay at a later point, but not for now. So now we have multiplayer, cannonballs, and death. But you can't see who's who because, well, everybody's the same, has the same appearance in contrast to real life. So I added nicknames, which are displayed above the player. So now you can see people's nicknames like player 034 or player 669, or my two favorites, player 420 and player 69. But these are all randomized names, so you obviously want to choose your own name. So I created a simple input field where you can choose your own name, and now you can change your own name. And what did I do with this? Well, I made the best name ever. Player 420. Hell yeah, freedom, bitch. In almost every last man standing game, whenever one player is standing and all alone and sad and having regret or having killed all his friends, they win. But currently in the game that doesn't happen. So I'm going to add that. First thing that has to happen whenever someone wins is slow motion. So I tried adding that, but there was one problem. Whenever the game started, every client or computer of a player didn't know how many other people were connected because the server took a few frames before it sent that data to everyone. So I fixed that by adding an additional if statement, which delayed the time until that happened, where it checked how many players were left. And whenever that happened, then the server would have already sent that data. So that fixed the problem. It's kind of confusing, but it fixed it, so who cares? Even though it's totally unstable and shit. So the game is starting to look a lot better, but remember how I said I was going to fix that buoyancy system problem? Well, I've got something way better. A workaround. I made something way better, which is a model which is way higher off the ground, so I don't need to give a shit about buoyancy. And it actually looks pretty good. It's inspired by the Wii sword fighting map thing, and it fixes my problem with the buoyancy thing, so, I mean, it's perfect, right? But right now, the middle is looking kind of boring because it's just plain white. So remember how I was going to make a logo in this episode? Well, I did that, and this is my result. It's not the best logo because I'm not a logo designer, obviously, but it's actually pretty good for a placeholder. But that's all I did for now, so I'm going to see you guys in the next video, where I'm probably going to be adding some new things like punching, which is something I want to add, and a few other mechanics, just to make the game look a little bit more interesting and play a little bit more fun. Because right now you can't really interact with all players, which is actually what you want to do, obviously, in multiplayer. So that's going to be for next episode. For now, that's all I have for you guys, but one more thing. You see that red button down there? It says subscribe. You should press it, because as a reward, you get a bell. You should also press that, or else. Oh, you see that thumb there? That hand with its thumb sticking up? Press it. I'm just joking. Or am I?